面试官到底要听什么呢？在准备面试问题之前，应该要了解什么？那今天来分享一些不能忽略的重点。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great.Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. In today's episode, we're going to kick off a 3-part series on how to answer interview questions. Now, for those of you who aren't thinking about switching jobs or jumping careers, there's still a lot we can learn about the structure behind well-prepared interview questions, how we think about presenting ourselves, and how we answer questions about how people view us.That's
right. 那就算今天你可能不需要去面试，那很有可能你就是会变成一个面试官，你可能要 interview 别人。那今天就让我们来了解一下，到底这些面试的问题，它背后的意义是什么？到底面试官想要听到的是什么？那今天的这个单元最主要的就是让我们来准备一下，在面试之前，我们应该要哪一些心态上的准备啊，还有一些 mindset 上面的一些准备。有了这些准备好了，我们才能够去面对各式各样的问题。
The foundation of how we're going to talk about today will come from one of the more respected interview and job hunting specialists and authors out there, James Reed. And he has a wonderful book called 101 Interview Questions You Will Never Fear Again.The reason we like this is because it's not just a basic, here's a common interview question. Here's a really good template to follow. He talks a lot about the mindset and the thought process behind how do you answer these difficult questions, but also importantly, why a company asks you the question. Because just like any relationship, sometimes the question people ask you is not really the answer that they're looking for. So how do you uncover what they're thinking?
那没错，刚刚那个有讲说这本书呢，这个作者他并没有给大家这种模板。我知道很多人上网想要找的就是这种 template 这种模板，好像你要怎么去回答一定都会成功，但是这个 it's not true. You don't actually have one good answer. 那当然每个面试官他所想要找的一些 quality 也是会稍微不一样，所以不管你现在到网络上面搜寻到什么样子的模板啊，什么样 template 或什么样子的一些做法，你一定都要了解今天我们会分享的这些很重要的 mindset. So we're going to start with what James Reed talked about is the 3G mindset. So the 3G, 这个 G 是什么呢？也就是 global, good, and grit. 那 global 这个部分呢，我们就把它想成我们的视野好了。你的视野是不是很宽广？也可以把它想成是我们的眼睛 These are the eyes. 那再来就是我们 good 也就是代表我们的心，我们是很人格是怎么样的人？是很正直的吗？是不是很 positive 的人？那最后就是 grit 也就是把它想成是我们的腿好了，我们的意志力是不是很坚强？So let's quickly talk about global. I think global is a very wide concept. So what goes into global?
Global is not necessarily, most people think like worldview. I've seen every country in the world in different cultures. What he's actually talking about is that you're able to see things from a distance. Meaning is a lot of people will maybe get caught up in the details, but they won't think about the far-reaching strategy. They are unable to step back and actually look at the bigger picture. Where's the company going? What are they trying to develop? What's the greater impact here? Rather than just looking at things like project to project.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Global 这个地方我觉得非常的重要。那其实你在职场上有几年的人，你都会知道，这个真的很重要。那 Global 呢，可能我们就在讲 your adaptability， 你的适应能力是怎么样？你是不是很伸缩自如的人？那 how do you build relationship with others？ 你跟人家怎么样建立情感？那你怎么跟人家合作 ？How do you collaborate with others？ 那这一些都跟你的 viewpoint， 你的视野是非常相关的。So the next one is good, right? 那这个部分我觉得比较好懂啦，其实就在讲一个人他是不是讲信用 Are you trustworthy? Are you loyal? Are you positive? Are you fair? Are you kind? And obviously, I think everyone wants someone like that in a company, right? 那再接下来就是 grit. I think everyone knows that. Resilience, 你碰到困难的时候，你是不是能够 push through? 你能不能够继续下去？还是你马上就 give up? 所以这三个重点，这个三个 G, the 3G, 变成是你在回答问题的时候都能够尝试着把这个 3G 放在这里面 You know, weave these 3G into your answers.
One interesting point that James Reed brings out in the book is that companies will continually choose people with the right mindset over the people with the right skills.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that if you have great mindset and no skills, you'll get a job. But it's that research shows that certain employers will look at someone's thought process, their mindset, their resilience, their global mindedness, and then consider that certain skill sets can be taught, right? It's easier to learn a skill set than to change the way you think. So it's easier to start with someone who has thinking that's more aligned with your company.
And I think as an employer ourselves, when we think about who to hire, that's what we cared about as well, right? And I know, Nick, you often talk about, it's really easy to teach people how to do certain things, but there are certain things you cannot be taught.
Yeah, the logic and thought process. So for me, I actually have a really hard time when we're writing out applications for interns or when we're trying to fill either like research positions or marketing positions, because my thought process is, okay, yeah, it's nice if you have certain skills, but I taught myself most of the things that I do, or I researched or learned about how to do them. So what I want is someone who has that same ability to go teach themselves how to do something really quickly, or I can teach them how to do something, probably because I have a very particular way of doing it. But if they have the right thought process, that's easier. But if they don't have the right thought process, it doesn't matter if they come with a whole tool bag of skills, they're not going to be able to execute perhaps the way that I would prefer they execute.
Right. So I think in another word, for example, 如果是我们现在要找一个 researcher, 今天如果这个人他进来，他跟我们讲说他的 presentation skill 非常的好，那假设他的 presentation skill 很好 It's very good, very well spoken, 他很站在台上非常的自在，但是如果他没有这三个 mindset， 那其实对于任何的 employer 来讲，我们都可能会觉得 not a good fit for the company, right? I think that just works for basically all companies and all employers. And I want to talk about the types of question. 你在面试的时候，这些那么多的问题，它是分成哪几种类？那我今天稍微跟大家讲一下这几种类的问题，我觉得也会帮助大家在准备过程当中。So I think the first one is just a very classic ones, right? 很经典的问题 like, why are you applying for the job? What's your greatest strength? Or what's your greatest weakness?
Yeah, these are all opening questions. Now, again, almost every interview book will list out, like, what's the best way to answer this?
Yeah.
But I think the mistake that most interview books get is that there is a formula answer to this. And that goes back to the original thought process of, why are they asking this question? Especially like the greatest weaknesses question. Most people get that wrong because they actually answer the question. They don't answer what is the company thinking about when they ask this question.
Exactly. 那所以在我们下一个单元跟下下一个单元，我们就会开始讲到你到底要怎么去准备 回答这些很经典的问题。So the next one would be like your career goal question. 那这个就是在问你职涯你的打算啦，你的目标，比如说 what motivates you, or what do you see yourself, or where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And I think we get asked a lot with those questions as well, right? Yeah. And the next one would be like a character questions. I've never actually gotten these questions before. Asking about what you believed, right? 一些人品人格的问题，比如说 what are your core values? Or what motivates you? Yeah, questions on your character.
I think these you run into a lot depending on the industry. Anyone who is working in a people-oriented position, HR, etc., will definitely have to get into these questions. But people who are often in more execution-style jobs, say engineers or accountants, etc., then yeah, of course, your skill set matters a lot, and they would like you to get along with people. But there's certain jobs like analysts where you may not have to. Like you don't really need to talk to people as much as other job sets, so they may just look at. Again, as long as you don't piss anybody off, you're probably fine.
Now the next one, I think is a really big one, and probably most people would be quite familiar with, is the competency question, 也就是在问你的能力。那能力可能分成 hard skill and soft skill. 那我稍微列了几个所谓的 soft skill 好了，也就是 like managerial skills, your leadership skills, time management, communication, critical thinking, teamwork. All of these are competency.
So questions here will get formulated like, inform me a few times that you've missed a deadline. Or inform me a few times where you really had to labor or struggle to hit a deadline.
Or tell me about a time where you really had a hard time working with someone and how did you resolve that? 在我们非常早期的大概第2、第3集那个时候，我们做了一些单元专门在讲要怎么样去回答这些behavioral 的一些问题。那我们就是用了 STAR method。我不知道大家有没有去听，但是那个 STAR method 就是可以用在这些所谓的 competency questions. Now the last one, which is a fun one, curveball and creativity questions. So let me give you guys an example. Let's say the interviewer would ask, each CV has at least one lie. What's yours? And I thought that was fun.
Yeah, I really like that curveball because then you can see from people's reaction, do they think about it? Do they actually be honest about if they lied? Or you can see if it catches them off guard, like, oh no, they found me.
Exactly, yeah. 所以这个地方这些问题可能就是来去训练你，或者是测试你的即兴反应是怎么样啊？你是不是很 creative 的人啊？还是你怎么样去解决这些很难回答的问题？ So yeah, these are the big categories of all interview questions, and I think we're in the next 2 episodes, we're definitely going to tackle some of the most asked classic interview questions.
Stay tuned for our next episodes. We'll actually break down how to answer these questions a little bit clear, the thought process behind them, and how to think about why someone's asking this question. Join us next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.